To close out this week's uploads, it's going to be one more deck profile. While I have quite a few lists in the queue right now to go over and talk about, I couldn't help but think about the current meta and how players are designing their decks to go ham in one turn. Even with the Necromon profile I just did, there was some dependency on tamers, and because of this I started thinking about decks that can deal with them. While true Greymon decks can delete tamers with cards like Hades Force, and other decks can prevent tamers from being played, Eosmon was one other deck that I honestly hadn't tinkered with in a while. And when I scoured YouTube for deck profiles of Eosmon, there's not a whole lot to go off of. And crazily enough, in some test matches, Eosmon was able to hold its own against even the likes of Adventure. As always, if you enjoy these types of videos, do consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and hitting that notification bell for more future content. Eosmon surprisingly hasn't been discussed much in the Digimon community. Largely with predetermined and solved formats from Japan, we never really had the guesswork to do for this deck. But surprisingly, this deck can do some insane things, and despite its toolbox from BT17, this is what today's video will primarily go over. BT17 Menoa Bellucci has an on-play effect that by trashing one Morphomon or Eosmon from your hand, you draw 2. Additionally, while you have Eosmon, none of your opponent's tamers on-play effects activate. This is brutal on so many levels, as some of those on-play effects are what make the tamer great. Additionally, this tamer is the one means of protection that prevents any of your Eosmon, whether they be level 4, 5, or 6 from leaving play by deleting another one. Needless to say, this tamer does a lot of work for the deck. As for Morphomon, the newest variant lets you digivolve into Eosmon for a reduced cost of 1, which converts your level 4 Eosmon into 1-cost Evos, though only one of them has a when digivolving effect. Likewise, this card's inheritable is absurdly strong and honestly reminds me of some of the level 2s and option cards we have today. Both this and the promo have the same inheritable of when an Eosmon is played, whether by card effect or by your own hand. You get a digivolve to next level at a reduced cost of 3. Level 5 Eosmon, free! Level 6 Eosmon, 1. This card honestly made me realize that this was a precursor of certain cards, Digimon from BT21, and even Raging Serpentine. One aspect of the promo Morphomon that I honestly hadn't realized was that with a memory fixer Menoa in play, you can do a search, then tuck under one of your other Eosmon named Digimon, and if you did, play out another Menoa. Keep in mind that the Eosmon in question could be a level 4 or level 5 Digimon. And if it is a level 5 Digimon, even better, because you can sequence a new Menoa to pitch an Eosmon draw 2, and potentially digivolve into your level 6 on attack. With the 4s and 5s, there are only Eosmon that offer something previously not available for the archetype. These Digimon have inheritables that provide redirects to any of your Eosmon named Digimon. Could be itself, or it could be another chump blocker. Regardless, the rules have shifted from previous variants. The level 4 went from an on-play to a when digivolving effect that can play either Tamer or Eosmon for a cost of 2. And the level 5 now is an on-play and when digivolving effect that lets you play a Tamer, and then de-digivolve 1 for every 2 Tamers in play. Keep in mind, this counts yours and your opponent's Tamers, and if you're using Cutting Edge, you could be playing this to de-digivolve on your opponent's turn. But the biggest change in Eosmon decks is of course going to be the big bad monster herself, Eosmon. When digivolving and when attacking, you may play one level 5 or lower Eosmon from your hand without paying cost. Also, all turns when one of your Eosmon is played, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with as much or less DP as that Digimon. Finally, during your turn, for each Tamer, all of your Eosmon get plus 1000 DP. While I discounted this card at first, after some heavy testing, I was so wrong. This card is amazing in the deck. Functionally, when you digivolve into this Digimon, you play an Eosmon, assumably one of the level 5 ones, which have 6000 DP. Normally this means you delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 6000 DP, but the major thing that I had missed was the fact that for each Tamer, all of your Eosmon get plus 1000 DP, which means for each Tamer you have, this goes up. 4 Tamers in play, delete a 10,000 DP Digimon. And considering you have Tamers that unlock protection aspects, that means you can play a new Eosmon to keep this Digimon from leaving play. And before you ask, yes, this effect does stack with 2 Eosmon in play, meaning if you have 5 or 6 Tamers, all of your Eosmon get plus 12,000 DP with 2 of them in play. For the sake of hilarity, I faced off against a bot just to see how high I could go. The answer, 53,000 DP. Outside of these Digimon, I also had to think long and hard about the meta on which Tamers would be beneficial. And boy, are there a lot of white Tamers to consider. Going back to the beginning of the game, the first card I considered was Takumi Aiba. Though a 2-cost tamer, this card helped with drawing into more pieces as the game progressed, and could tax my opponent's level 3s from attacking for 1 memory. Realistically though, if your meta is more so low to the ground level 3s, this would be a great choice. But in the current meta, I ultimately had to pass on it. BT6 would introduce the first Menoa Bellucci, and arguably this is definitely a minimum at 2 of in the deck. This card sets you to 3 memory, and when you play an Eosmon, you get to filter the top 3 cards for a tamer or a Digimon with Eosmon in its name. Next up, BT8 would introduce the Digimon Emperor, and honestly, this tamer has a nice time against a lot of the decks in the current meta. Take Demon Lords for example. Unless they're on heavy Lucemon destruction, I could see the guaranteed card draw each turn. Shamefully, it does whiff against Royal Knights. Currently, I have this set as a 2 of in the deck as it could be a turn stealer on the promote of a level 3. Earlier renditions of the deck, I tested with Analog Youth, but this didn't feel quite right considering most Eosmon cards won't have Digivolution sources. Likewise, I looked into Battle NPC, but that was another flop considering you don't run that many level 3s. BT21 Tai Kamiya also showed some promise, though at this point I started being a little careful about how far I wanted to stray from the overall archetype. This card is an adventure trait card, but passively it can draw each time you attack with your Eosmon and replenish. However, this would mean a shift to green Koromon eggs and hoping you open with Morphomon Greymon to go into Eosmon. And even then, it doesn't work with the old support cards. This is ultimately why I passed on this specific tamer, at least for the time being. Out of all of these tamers, I ultimately landed on the 2 variants of Menoa and Digimon Emperor. But there was one final white tamer that would ultimately make the cut. Hokuto Amanakawa is a 2-cost white tamer that if your opponent has 3 or more tamers at the start of your turn, gain 1 memory. Additionally, all turns when an opponent plays a Digimon by suspending this tamer, gain 1 memory if that Digimon is level 4 or higher, and draw if it is a level 3. This is a tamer that after a lot of playtesting really opened my eyes that it could be the tamer for the current format. With decks like Royal Knights, Red Purple Imperial, and so many decks that can float out Digimon, this is the ultimate tamer that can tax them. And because you're assisting your opponent with playing their tamers, this could be what sets you up for 3, 4, or even 5 memory at the start of your turn. Now after all of this in-depth discussion, let's get down to the deck profile. Level 2s, this is really dealer's choice on what you want to do. There are no green eggs that function specifically for Eosmon decks. So for me, it was going back as far as old Argomon for the extra memory on the unsuspend, though if you really wanted to, Nyaromon is probably the choice I go with since it makes your stack a little bigger on all turns. Because there aren't a lot of good level 3s for this deck, and newer variants of Eosmon punish you for trying to use anything that's not Morphomon, the level 3s are largely locked to specifically 12 Digimon, though realistically it's 8. I don't run the BT6 Eosmon because it only does searching on deletion, which kind of hurts you for stack building. The promo though is definitely an MVP. Eosmons in the level 4 category are largely centralized for each on the new ones and old ones. Again, not much to discuss here. Because the deck limits you to playing your white tamers for free or at a reduced cost, I don't recommend running any other tamers, though if I had to choose a color, I'd go with either purple or yellow. With the level 5s also being largely 4 of the new variants and at least 13 to 15 other Eosmon for the level 5 lineup. For the boss monster lineup, you run 4 of the new Eosmon. In testing, I did try the old variant, but I just didn't care for it. The newest one helps with preemptive deletion before your opponent even has an opportunity to blast Digivolve. Remember, when you attack, you play the Eosmon, which then triggers the new Eosmon's ability to lead a Digimon with as much or less DP as it. If you're able to remove the target before the CRD check, you're golden. Super top-end boss, it's just 1 Quartzmon, though it'd be amusing to try to fit in a second copy. Once you've built both yours and your opponent's board wide enough, attack, trash all their security, and go for game. No options are run, though early tests had me running X Program and Cutting Edge. Remember, Cutting Edge would be able to play an Eosmon on your opponent's turn and trigger your level 6 Eosmon, but the deletion of a 6000 DP Digimon potentially just isn't worth it in my eyes. Which leaves the tamers in the following configuration: 3 memory fixers as you filter as you play Eosmon, 2 Digimon Emperors, 3 protection and more filtering Menoas, and 3 Hokuto Amanakawa. I'm not saying Eosmon is the meta deck to take to a regional, but this is one of the most fun decks to explore in an age where deck profiles largely haven't been explored. What are your thoughts on Eosmon, and will Hokuto be making his way into any of your decks? Let me know your thoughts, and I'll catch you next week on more Digimon content. This is DIGI-PANDA, logging out.